to the Laramie City Council special meeting of Tuesday, May the 12th, 2026. Do I need to do all with this special meeting? I just go right into the agenda.
Roll call.
Oh, City Clerk, if you can please call the roll.
Bowling.
Aye.
Freed.
Here.
Lockhart.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Meathel. Here. Richardson.
Here.
Tumby.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent. You're on.
Thank you, City Clerk. Next. City Clerk. Do I have to do public comment or just
Yeah, public comment.
because it's not in there like it normally is?
It was in our notice. I'm not sure what happened to the agenda.
I don't see it here either. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none. We will go on to the agenda item of this special meeting. Councilor O'Doherty.
I move that Laramie City Council approve Councilor Vihil's travel to the International Town and Gown Association 2026 conference and authorize the city clerk to sign the pre-approval form.
Second.
I have a motion from O'Doherty and a second from Bowling. Councilor Vigil, would you like to tell us anything about this conference?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As part of our boards and commissions assignments, I'm on our local chapter of the International Town Gown Association. And so this association has gone through quite the transition over the last year. And I think now we're really in a pretty good place where we're starting to move forward with a lot of the ideas and initiatives that we had and kind of meeting about this past academic year. And so we put together a proposal for this conference and it was accepted. More information is in a cover sheet. But essentially we'll be kind of talking about morality and some of the ideas that we have and the importance of maintaining relationships between, the municipal level, the county level, biotech, LCCC, and the University of Wyoming. And so appreciate all of your help with the proposal too, Mayor. And so I think it would be really great to have city representation. The conference is in College Station, Texas. And yes, and so I am part of that proposal and presentation. And I think it'd be really great. So the conference itself, there's a lot of really cool sessions just around the municipal university relationship. And I think that in particular will be important, especially as, we're welcoming a new university president here in the next 2 months. So there's some sessions on building those types of relationships. And then I think it would be really great to attend some of the other sessions, which are around a lot of town gown associations across the country focused upon substance prevention. And I know Albany County does as well. And so we have done that as a local chapter in the past. And so to get up to speed on that, I think will be important.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any questions for Councilor Vigil? Okay. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, are there any comments? I just want to say, Councilor Vigil, I'm really proud of the work you've done. You've been a very devoted member and you've really helped with the renewal of the organization. And I think that your association with the university, with city council, and on this is just an important and strong triad there. And I'm real proud of you for participating in an international conference And this is going to be more than a presentation. They start with the presentation and then it'll be group discussion. So I think this should really generate some good thoughts and ideas. So without further ado, if you can call the roll, please.
Bowling,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Freed,
Yes.
Lockhart,
Yes.
Stoneley,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Behill,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Cumbie.
Aye.
That's 9 yeses and 0 no's, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion passes. And Councilor O'Doherty?
Oh, good. I move we adjourn the special meeting to begin the work session.
Okay. All in, I have a motion by O'Doherty, second by Newman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Come to order. Welcome to the work session of the Laramie City Council, Tuesday, May 12, 2026. And first we'll start, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move into the work session. Oh, it looks like I have a motion. Yes, Councilor Newman.
I move to suspend the rules tonight to allow open dialogue between council members and staff, including the use of first names for the purpose of encouraging open discussion.
Second.
Was that you? Okay. I have a motion from Newman, second from Bowling. Can we just do voice on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We have suspended the rules to allow for open communication between councilors and staff. Thank you.
Council members and mayor, we're excited to be here again tonight for the second of our budget work sessions. I'm going to turn it over quickly to Director Wade so she can give you a little insight on what you can expect tonight, and then we'll look forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I know it's first names, but it's really hard to lead off that way. So I'll be a little more formal to start. So tonight you get to hear from departments all night long, and that actually is what the agenda will be for next Thursday as well. And so what we've asked them to do is actually prepare a presentation that goes over kind of the functions that their departments offer, maybe in a different way than you've heard that talked about before, and then their major budgetary requests. And so you'll be able to see, if you go to what I would recommend you do actually while the department is presenting, is just to go to that section in the budget book using those bookmarks, and you'll be able to move along with them and see what those budget requests are and ask questions about requests, even if they don't go over that specific item. And so that's the best advice I can give you for kind of navigating tonight, but I think you're going to get a lot of really good information. And we'd like to encourage you to ask questions of directors as they wrap up their presentation. So they're here for as long as you need them to be, but I know some of them have other commitments. And so when they step down from the podium or move away from the table, they may be moving on to other things tonight. And so I just want to encourage you in that way. You will notice in the budget book this year, when you're in that departmental section, you'll see not only the requests that apply to that area, but also a summary of the budget changes by division. And so we hope that that additional little summary as you're considering the budget as a council really helps you see how things moved and changed during the year for items that are not related to department requests. One of the things that comes to my mind is that payroll-based budget we talked about last work session. And so I just want to point that out to you because I think it'll help you navigate as we move into a different type of presentation this evening.
Yeah. First up tonight will be Chief Johnson with the Laramie Fire Department.
Members elected. There's council. Thanks for your time tonight to present our budget. I also want to thank Todd and Jen's team for their assistance in the budget process this year. They do a lot of work getting this prepared. We were asked to talk about our department a little bit, so, the things we do. The first I thought is the fire department put out fires and it's writing things down. There's actually a lot of things involved with the fire department. So we go through these visually and administration is first of all talk about, and that's basically what I do. I'm a speaker. It's like, what do I do? I try to summarize it into I really deal with outside influences on the department. Everyone else there, the divisional people there, they're inside influences. They're all response oriented. I deal with outside. When I say outside influence, it could be the budget process. I deal with the budget process. I deal with politics, come to council meetings, I deal with laws, legal things, standards, liability, public interactions, and decision-making for the department. So that's really the administration, kind of defining what the administration does in our department. We're really trying to provide leadership in the department, divisional directions, materials necessary to give the citizens the protection they need. So that's administration. EMS divisions, probably the division that's undergone the most changes in our department. It's been a very interesting year. You're all aware we split with Nation. We're now our own entity, and we no longer do different facility transfers, but we provide all the emergency response for the city of Wyoming. So we're still real busy with EMS. The budgetary change you'll see in that is that instead of getting some of our supplies in them through the books of IMH and taking off what our revenue is with IMH, it's like we've got our own account of that. We'll talk about that. Operations division, it's probably the most frontline component of our department. It's the one that is the nuts and bolts that deals with a lot of the operational issues with fire trucks, animals as fuel. I really break the operations division down into three sections. They really do facilities management, they do apparatus and equipment management, and they do personnel management. So they stay busy. They have, not only do we do a lot of EMS as our primary call load, we do structure fire, we do wildland fire, we do technical rescue, special operations, such as swift water rescue, ice rescue. Going into the life safety fire prevention division, a lot of people have renamed those divisions to community risk reduction. We're really but they do a lot of public education. They do a lot of communication, media, press release, that kind of thing. Their main function is proactive measures. The best fire is the one that never happens for us. If we can stop from happening, and that's really what that whole division, they through inspections, code enforcement, plan reviews, they're very valuable in trying to keep this town safe from having those risks. So.
Chief, I remember a few years back, we talked a lot about fall prevention, the fire department, and then we had COVID. Is that still part of the life safety function, or has that been delegated to like the action center now?
So you're correct. We had a person that was really dedicated into the community risk reduction at that time. And fall prevention through our data analysis was one of the biggest areas we thought we could make an impact. And he spent a lot of time at the Epsom Center, but all over town, Spring Men's nursing home, doing inspections for trick acid, but also with education. It was real busy effort on that. We will still do that, but that's not the main focus. We don't have like a studio person like going. But we spend quite a while working on the issues. We'll still do that. So
Thank you.
okay. The training division is a very important division. I've always said, you know, if we only had it. We all have limited budgets. Our best spent money is in the training division. I'd rather have well-trained people that I needed well-equipped people too, but the training is so important. I needed people to know what they're doing. So the training division, they develop, coordinate, and deliver training programs in our department. They're responsible for promotional testing. We have strict guidelines developed through the Civil Service Commission on how we do all the promotional testing. They do a lot of recruit testing. They train to local, state, and national standards. We have a lot of standards that we train to. It's not, we don't just make up stuff. We go train to these standards. They're also our academy liaison. We are one of the primary participants in the State Fire Academy, and so they're primary liaison with it. And then our physical fitness program is there's a couple of other cost centers that are not really, I don't call them divisions in our department. They're listed in the divisional matrix of the budget. And the EMA, really what it is, we used to run EMA through the fire department for the whole county until about 2013, I believe it was, in that transition where the county runs it, and it is the county's responsibility to run. But we benefit as a city from a good, effective EMA, so we support that budgetarily the best we can. And you'll see a cost line for $20,000 to support that program for EMA, because the city really benefits from effective.
Could you inform us about, I assume it's emergency management, is it agency?
Emergency management agency.
Thank you.
And yeah, sorry, I'm acronym driven and I do something. So, and then the other cost centers, grants that we typically manage. We look at the Fire Act grant every year and make applications. That's through the federal government. We applied through the state, through the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security for what they call SLIP grants, SHSP grants, the State Homeland Security Grant Program. And then we've been successful in the HMEP program, which is hazardous materials. I don't even know the name of the acronym, but it's a hazardous materials grant.
Emergency preparedness.
Anyway, so anyway, that we run a grant revenue and expenses through the grant cost. So, then whenever we have money coming in, we bring local council for acceptance. Okay. So I'll get into some of the actual reason here is talking about budget requests. So I'm going to kind of jump around on this next slide a little bit. One of my requests is for clerical assistance in our department. The clerical will, that position will assist the administrative coordinator with things like payroll assistance, scheduling phones, office, just general clerical duties in a place. We have a part-time person there right now, and it's just basically replacing that person. She's her last day's tomorrow, so we're trying to replace her. I'm going to jump down to the firefighter overhires. Once again, I want to thank the council for supporting overhires in the recent past, and the 5 firefighter overhires we want to carry into next year will hopefully keep our head above water. We have 4 recruits getting out of the academy. We do have attrition issues happening this year. We should be zeroed out on those open hires within this budget year. The amount that you see asked for is figured 5 overhires for the year. It won't be that amount, but we have present a budget number, and some people may delay retirement by a couple months, or some people may work might do a little longer than we expect, but we have some movement issues going to happen in our department this year where those overhires will slide in. We've been kind of sunk on our staffing levels for so long, and you guys have supported us with the overhires and with our overtime budget. If you look at our current overtime budget, we have spent a lot of money in overtime, but to maintain a minimum staffing level, that's the only way we can get there. So I wanted to talk about the overhires. That's a big deal. The next one on here I want to talk about is the inspector position that we've had. You guys have supported that for 4 years, 3 years at that position, and we bring it back annually for your scrutiny. And that position does a lot of work. Really grinds on inspections, gets out, and they're a civilian 32-hour position, so they're not pulled away on calls. They're not having other things distract them from the work, the mission of the Life Safety Fire Prevention Division. So that's another request I had, them to carry that one in again.
Chief, I have a question about that one.
Yes.
Why don't we just make that ongoing then? Why is it from a 2 year now a 1 year? How come that isn't just ongoing?
I'll take that through to Brandon. Brandon, what we're doing is just basically managing staff costs and the impact to budget for ongoing expenses. If worse comes to worse, or if there are reductions, we have the ability to make some changes.
You'll see those are the 3 personnel requests I had on this budget. Now, the fact that I was able to come up here and talk about budget, I did want to take this opportunity to jump kind of backwards and thank you once again for the overhires, the support you've given on that. That has been a lot for operational efficiency. And thank you for supporting the compliance officer that was a new position for us when we separated. And it's been a learning curve, but it's amazing how important that position has been and what we rely on that position to do. And I was jotting down some of what I rely on this position to do for our department, for you, for the city. And she takes care of regulatory adherence on our EMS response. She looks at policy and procedure development within the compliance vision. She does a lot of quality assurance, reviewing reports and billing, and training based off of that within our department. She does a lot of investigation and risk management. If there's any issue that comes up, that she's got a background of 30 years in emergency response, so she knows the response side of the job too. So we really rely on her to investigate any, whether it's a complaint or a review order. Documentation management, and she's our primary liaison to our billing company, and all the revenue is generated through that program. So I wanted to thank you again for last year's support of that, and to let you know that it is very appreciated. It's very valuable that we have that position.
Chief, next question. Dan, is the overhiring, is that pretty common in fire departments across like municipalities, Wyoming, or the country? Like that type of practice to make sure that you have, minimum staffing filled, whether there's attrition or, whatever.
The minimum staffing level, I would say, is very common in most departments that I'm aware of. The overhire concept is common on like short term, like one position type of thing, not for a greater percentage like we're doing. We went through a very I've never seen anything like it in my career as far as the absenteeism due to injuries that happen, whether they were on duty or off duty. They really multiplied on us. And getting into an overhire position for us allows us not to sink, hopefully, as low as we got. I really worry about we're working the people that are left way too much. So the overhires is going to help that out. And like I said, the attrition on that over next year should be hopefully good. Now, I will say, we're in the learning curve on staffing needs when you do the staffing analysis. I've done staffing analysis for years on data evaluations based on call load, based on concurrency of call load, based on a lot of things. But we're in a new system now, and our responsibilities are a little different, and there is time. So we're getting a better handle on what our actual needs are. We need our staffing we have, but we also need them housing, and that's kind of where we're at. But that's all answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, could you describe the shift number, the minimum staffing number, and the number of firefighters that have been out on injury, just to give a full picture of what we've been going through over the past few years?
Yes, we have 42 line firefighters that divide out to FTEs to 14 per shift. And on each shift, you have a shift commander, 3 company officers, couple operators, 7 firefighters. They operate out of 3 stations. We have this station out in West Laramie, or Station 3, the station out north of town, on the north side, and Station 2, or downtown Station 1. Our minimum staffing level to run all of our response for the county is 11 people per day. The 11 was when we were running interfacility transfers under an old agreement. I would say it was not enough people. That's where we layered in a civilian driver program for a while, and we had a civilian paramedic program trying to keep us afloat. We're doing much better with it's amazing how I still look at the currency of the car. We went from where we were regularly to 70% when we were running in facilities. We're still over 50%. I'm trying to add that into my report every month. We're hanging around at 52%. So 50% of the time we have more than one unit busy. We're running multiple calls. Is what I'm talking about when I say that. So anytime you're running multiple calls, of course, the staffing level is going down and everything goes on. And you can drop 4 calls within 10 minutes. I mean, it's not common, but it happens. It happens every year and we need to be able to respond best we can. We start triaging basically the calls and trying to get the ones that we're working through them. So anyway, that's kind of the minimum staffing standards. The injuries, our high point was, I think we were at about 8 hours at one point with that were unable to do shift work. So we're down now to like 5, I think, something like that. We had people trading back, maybe 6.
If I could run those numbers, we remember it's 14 per shift. There's vacation in those shifts too, and I think we allow 2 positions for vacation, which takes us by contract, takes us down to 12. And then you have injuries, sickness, other changes that will get us below that minimum staffing level number of 11. And then you start to bring back for a lot of overtime or shift holdovers, or which can lead to injuries. And so the overhires are this bridge gap to try to help us get to a different point and be more secure in our fire department and have the right amount of personnel on show.
Right. Next slide. Operating requesting. One of the bigger things you see in there, we're starting to layer in operating requests in our EMS division for supplies. Like I said before, all of our supplies ran through the IM. Basically, they just billed out to us and took it off of our revenue, and that's how it was accounted for all these years. Well, we're being our own entity. We are paying for supplies and collecting revenue, so I have to account for that. And that's a learning curve. We don't have that. Supplies have gone up. Everything's gone up. But also we don't have the amount of supplies that we're ordering, I will say, is a lot smaller than in order for like that gets pulled through the whole hospital. So the volume things, we might not get the volume discount that we do, but we make up for that in different ways. We're going to be much better at inventory control, which is next. Inventory management. We are instigating initiating an inventory management system. It's called PTRAX, PS-Trax, and it's a cloud-based inventory management system that tracks supplies. We can even put our vehicles in there and our high-value assets in there, but we really are targeting our supplies because we can't run low. We have to know like what's expiring when we're looking at a lot of the drugs that we carry on the ambulances. They have shelf lives, IV supplies, a lot of stuff we used to have shelf lives. So we can't have something like pushed to the back and it'd be expiring and being using the newer stuff. We can't miss inventory checks and not have the equipment that we need. Now, we do have in our mutual aid agreement the ability to run out and get some stuff, but we want to do a good job on our inventory management system. So we put in to get that going. Let's see. It can do digital manual checklists. The guys help do their inventory levels, and it really can focus on tracking our meds and narcotics. It ensures, basically at the end, it ensures our operational readiness. The next thing I'll talk about is communications. We, for many years, had the good fortune of having what I call communication techs that were layered in our firefighter rank that could actually do a lot of work on our communication stuff, whether it's programming radios, troubleshooting problems with radios, installation of radios. We don't have those anymore, and we will have to rely on contractors or get into a contract with a company to take care of a lot of our radio issues. I guess best estimate, and we'll build an experience over the next few years on what we spend on a contract or a contractor, but we're thinking we don't have it.
Chief, would you say that over those years where previously you had people that could work on it and or service, have our communications become more complex where it's difficult to have an individual just come in and be able to do that?
The people we had were highly talented and they were highly educated in that field. They would start talking about some stuff and it was like they could be talking Mandarin to me. I didn't even understand what they were saying. It's a very it's technical and complex, and it hasn't gotten easier, I want to say. So it's I imagine I saw in the crowd and talking about it in that radio stuff. So anyway, but we need assistance on. We don't have the technical expertise on shift anymore. So.
Thank you.
Next thing I think I got listed is PPE. The cost of PPE has gone up. It's crazy how much the price has gone up on everything. And personal protective equipment for our firefighters. So we want to get good quality personal protective equipment. It's their lives depend on it. And we have fallen a little bit behind on our turnout replacement schedule. We're still okay, but we got to catch back up. So you'll see requests on PPE. See, I didn't put it on the slide, but training supplies, we do a lot. The guys have the ability to do a lot of complex training scenarios in the facility that was supported by the community on the 2018 spec tax. And so therefore we're building up, we're knowing what our costs are for that. It's about $10,000. I think I asked for about $1,000. It'd be OSB, propane. We break a lot of doors and locks and stuff like that in training. So you'll see those.
Chief?
I think the people that are reading the 223-page document, it would be good for the public to know. As far as training, we have it there, each firefighter completes about 240 hours of training a year. So I just think it's nice for the public to know that they're not just sitting around waiting for a fire to happen. They're always keeping busy and including training.
They're very busy and they actually do the training. They're actually out and doing it. They're not, I call it pencil whip. No one's getting hours assigned in for training that it's not accomplishing. It's they're doing the work. And gosh, I remember when I got out of school and I was thinking, that's so nice to be done with school. When I got this job, it's like, I still go to train. It's never ended. It's like, you're always learning something. Guys train all the time. If they're not learning new things, they're training skills, I call them perishable. If you don't do those things for a while, you're not good at it. You have to practice those skills. You have to practice fire attack. That's a good example. You have to practice single company and multi-company fire attack. And once you get as fireman, you're doing it really good. If you don't address that every year, you won't be very good in a few years. You won't be very competent. You won't be very fluid putting on the gear and advancing down those lines and coordinating with other companies. One of the things I require our people to do is if they go to a dumpster fire. Now, what's a dumpster fire? It's not big. See, it's not I would say a critical call, but we run that call, the incident command wise, like it was a big call. You know, you make an arrival report, you do a size up, you make assignments, you pass command or you retake command. If you need more resources, you got to do resource allocation and resource evaluation. And if you can't do it right on the little things, you'll never do it right on the big things. So I hammer about that. If I don't hear an arrival report that takes it serious on a small call, I call them in and talk to them. They know that they've got to do it right. Because when it's so that training is ongoing through their whole career, I would say. The next thing is capital. The SPET, we were successful on 2018 SPET. We've got the project was bonded, so we built it earlier in the collection time frame. It's been a huge success, very well used. The state loves it. They come out and integrate their training on the academy. We use it all the time. It's been a good thing where there's a little bit of money left. I have to get with Jen and have to do some, I believe your book will show there's like 60 somewhere, maybe 70,000 left. I think we spent most of that, but there'll be just a minor amount left to close out the book on that project, but we're all close.
And remember too, that in a year when excess collections on the set are released, there'll be even more. And so that'll be the last trickle in a year, because poor Dan had to deal with that trickle now for the whole life of the project, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate, very thankful that the community supported that project. It's really working out well for us. Very thankful that the 2026 passed because we're in our station. We got to know what I talk about when I mention that. So you'll be seeing future budgetary things.
Chief, I have a couple questions for you. One on that, on the use the state does of our equipment here. Do we charge them anything for that, or is that?
We don't right now. We're talking about a system. We were involved with the Front Range Fire Consortium, and it was all money driven, and it was being people's hours were charged out. It was very costly. It was very expensive. The departments that are involved in the Wyoming consortium, called the Wyoming. It's a lot of departments working together that are sending trainers that are providing costs. I guess to make that work. We're looking at how we're going to move forward in the future, but we're still way better off doing it the way we're doing it now versus going south of the border and doing what we're, because we really need to kick off a professional academy for a guy's career to get him started down that road. And it's, so we're working through that. The answer is no right now, but we're talking about how we're going to equalize that. And it's still going to be way better than what that. I think we were. I think just it was basically a right to hold on to the consortium down there. There was a lot of money that we had to pay on an annual basis, plus all the extra that you had to pay for the instructors that came in.
My other question is backtracking a bit on the contracting out, or bringing in the in-house communication technology. I am assuming that none of this overlaps with what the PD utilizes, and we can't kind of leverage one system for everything. Is that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Sorry, so my question is on the communication request for the new technology. I'm assuming that this could be, it's not the same thing the police department uses, and we couldn't, come together on that communication system. I'm assuming you guys talk that through, they are not the same thing.
Under the operating part, the communications I talked about was building up for the ability to have some work on some stuff. You'll see a communication under capital that this year.
It was a tech.
That involves, it is layered in with dispatch, and I've gone over all the costs there. It's amazing what this kind of stuff costs, but what we have is obsolete, it's not supported, it's not reliable, and we've got to get it fixed at some point. So, but yes, we're getting assistance through Kim and Chief Brown on this project. So, apparatus. So we don't have any major apparatus on this year other than what we're carrying from last year. We were approved for 1.3. We've got the bids in. I still haven't decided whether we only received one bid, and I'm not very happy about that. And I'm still debating whether I'm going to bring that one bid for recommendation to council or not. I really want to scrutinize it a little bit more before I bring it forward. So, but that would be, money would be spent if we go, would be, that's from last year. It was a carryover to this year.
I heard a rumor that since there's so few companies that provide the trucks, that some municipalities might have been suing them for like, monopoly. Yeah, and so that they're gouging municipalities for the cost of trucks. I know they cost a lot of money, so I'm just wondering if you'd heard anything about that, the possibility of some relief if
I have not heard that. What I do know is that through the COVID era, things really got expensive. I have not seen the prices pull back. The timelines got really ridiculous long to get equipment. That is getting better. That's moving in the right direction. The pricing is still higher than I'm comfortable with, but everyone's dealing with that. It's one of the things that I've considered and looking at. Everything I do is public information stuff, but the person knows what you have in your budget to spend on a piece of equipment and they're bidding on it. I have a little problem with some of the bids I've seen over the last few years that are very close to our budget. And I'm wondering how to move forward with that. I'm not saying that that's happening because I don't know, but it is public information. So, it's easy to find if it was. So, and so I always like value. It's not the cost, it's the value. That's what I look at. So, under apparatus, then the only other two things we have the big carryover that we're dealing with, and then we have, I believe, we have a staff car that's due on this new budget, and then we're trying to add a small in-town, not an out-of-town, not an emergency response vehicle. We need to get fitted with license sirens, but we need some more vehicle support in our life prevention, life safety fire prevention division. So I already requested more fire station food packaging system. I think I really just kind of went over that. It's an expensive project. I think the total is around 15. We need to invest in that because it's too critical. On the dispatch side, that when they send out a tone that they know we received it, they shouldn't have to wait and say, repage to wonder if we even got the page. And the guys shouldn't have to have all the radios on all the time, listening to find out dispatch is trying to get it over. It should work the way it seems. And what we have is really, really old and antiquated. That's the capital highlights. This is kind of vision. I call it driving our future since we had our driving. But anyway, I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to over the next year is, I think the most important thing that we can achieve is stabilizing our staff. And the council support on that is big. And if we can get to a stable staffing and a normal, where you guys aren't like looking at overtime budgets and going, holy, it's that's one of the big goals we have over this next year. The SPEC just passed. I mean, that's a big deal. We'll look at, I'll be talking about to Jim and the council about funding that project. We'll be looking at a process of getting a design team together for that. And then together as the owner and the design teams, we're looking at probably doing a construction manager at risk again. And work as those three entities trying to get this achieved restriction issues. Technology is here. It's every year. It's never ending. I can talk about technology. It's amazing the stuff that's coming out every year. But really what I'm looking at is predictive modeling for our department. Software that will help us with inventory. We talked about that one already. I'm really pushing the life safety fire prevention division to digitize all of our pre-plans so that officers and incident commanders have instant access to emergency response information on specific buildings in town. That's digitally accessible instead of trying to have file cards and stuff. That's with today's technology, we don't have to put in. Proactive community risk reduction comes through preventative inspections, education. I think they're probably, I'll tell you, we'll start along. The guys, they get a new guy in and they'll work and they're really response oriented and stuff. And then they'll meet someone from our prevention division. They'll go and say, can I help you, sir? And it's like, I work here. They don't, they do a lot of important work though. And they interact more and more with the public on those inspections and code. Data-driven decisions. I like decision to be backed by data. So I really look for data to help us out. I really count. So firefighter health and safety, what we are learning about cancer rates on firefighting and the past practice. What we did when I was new here is never a lot today, the way we live today. And we need to keep all the forefront of firefighter health and safety. So that's kind of the vision of what I'm doing at notable trends. I'll speed this up a little bit because I don't know. Overtime, we relied on overtime and overhires to get us through the staff shortage. The EMS service model has changed. That's the biggest change in the department. And then the last slide I have, I want to end up with our mission statement. We put it on tasks and stuff. It's important we have it posted on our wall. Preservation of life and property through aggressive professional service. I tell the guys, especially the young guys, you need to understand what that means. And if you can't remember we're there to help you. Everything we do is to help you. We have a 2-word mission statement. You can't remember this one. Remember that. That's why we exist. So that's how I'm going to end it. I stand for any questions.
I'd like to make a comment or announcement. I'm not sure that I've shared it with council, but Chief Johnson and the Laramie Fire Department would have invited us to hold a live burn demonstration for City Council during the work session on September the 8th. The beginning of the meeting would be held in the classroom at the LFD training facility and then adjourn to the live demonstration. And my response was, I enthusiastically support our doing this. And I think it's very meaningful and helpful to our holistic understanding of the department. And so I appreciate your thoughtfulness in inviting us. And so we'll look forward to that on September 8th. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, thanks, Chief. So forgive me for waiting here for the end to just go back to some things, and maybe this is also a question for Tom and for Jim. Just going back to some of the supplemental operating requests and supplies, like say for instance, when it comes to the EMS operating supplies, right? I mean, obviously, inflation is a huge part of that, and we can anticipate that not doing. We have an ongoing like $7,300 request, but then also the one-time $32,000. Is there a reason we shouldn't be anticipating making that or like combining those into something that feels like it's an ongoing request? And maybe this is a silly question, but I understand that it was a very complicated, albeit successful process to make the agreement with the hospital that we did in terms of interstate transfers and things like that. But is there any future possibility of going back and about agreement that allows us to access those critical care supplies at that point?
Well, Mayor, if you probably don't foresee us getting back to that. We asked that question first and allowed to do that. So one of the things I want to say is when you're looking at like that one-time cost, and then we'll get a real good handle on our inventory costs over this next few years, but we had to, I want to say front load. There's certain supplies we'll use all the time, IV tubing, IV bags and stuff. There's other supplies that don't get used a lot, but we have to have them, we have access to them. We had to stop and get them going. Those type of things typically don't expire, but we have to have a lot of access to. So we had to make an initial investment up front. That might be some of those costs that you're looking at on one-time issues.
And if I could add to that, we were really hesitant to add anything to ongoing budgets unless we saw in the history of spending that would be necessary. There's all kinds of mechanisms that departments can use to increase their budget for one-time amounts, like the chief just talked about, or if you look at routine equipment, which actually has a lot of supply type purchases in it that are larger. And so we kind of try to look at those decisions holistically and say, is this truly an ongoing increase? Because once it is, remember, if it's part of their operating cost, and that means contractual services or operating supplies, then it rolls forward every year into perpetuity. And so we're pretty careful about how we grow the budget in that way.
Thank you.
That numbers you're looking at, we were starting to develop those budgetary ideas and projections after we'd only been split for 3 to 4 months when we started initially. So we're going to learn a lot over the next year, 2 years about those costs. I feel like I'm very comfortable if we over projected or under projected before and met the issue with you explaining why that happened. But I think we did analyze it pretty clearly, and I think we're going to be in the supply arena around 10 grand is what I think is going to be overall. Of course, we have revenue coming in offset all that in the future. But that's kind of the way it's looking at. I will stand by that number right now. I think that's kind of the way I see of all the supplies we use through that division.
Chief, to ask you this question, I don't think it's ever come up before. We obviously have several volunteer fire departments throughout the county. I know that you have a hard time keeping your 3 stations fully staffed. Have we ever thought about bringing in our trained volunteers to fulfill the staff needs And, you know, with that, I know we're paying quite a bit of overtime and quite a bit of funding to keep that staff work up, but can we, or has there been thought to use volunteer firefighters to complement and to bring our staffing up to what the requirement is for each station?
I wonder if you, that has been looked at years ago. I believe Randy Vickers did a presentation. It might have been at your request years ago when you were running house. And it looked at combination efforts. So any kind of thought into that endeavor would, what's really got us over the last year and a half, say, was the staffing shortages. To run an effective, those people would need to be trained by us, certified by us, equipped by us if they're going to work for us. And there are high costs associated with operating that way. Also with equipment, training, turnover, reliability, if we were to look at a combination situation. I don't think, I've never looked at, or I personally wouldn't consider a situation where and put them on duty that we didn't train, we don't know their capabilities, we don't, you know, I don't think that has ever been looked at. So, you know, I won't answer your question, but that's, I think that's what you were saying, is take the ones that are available and just basically vital stations to supplement staff what we did. And they are not in our system, I guess, of accountability. I think the liability is very high. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So, but if directed, I would certainly look into it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sorry, I don't know my
Report stuff.
So maybe they would move around the corner.
Next up, we have Chief Brown from the Laramie Police Department.
Thank you. Well, I'll apologize in advance to Council Member Bowling. We presented this presentation to the Police Advisory Board about 2 weeks ago in preparation for this process. So I'll try to speed through it a little bit and give it some time. All right, I'm out of here. He was supportive of everything. That completes our presentation. There you go.
Sorry, I know, that's okay. I just had to share the screen with the folks online.
So I'll start with this. Every year we're required as part of the city ordinance to give an update on bias crime-related incidents. And we completed our annual report about 2 weeks ago. I encourage the public to go online and look at the data in its entirety. It's a robust report with a lot of data. While the crime committees investigated throughout the year, our community engagement efforts, what you will not see in there is data surrounding bias incidents or crimes this year because we do not have it. There were 3 incidents that we looked at as a team and reached out to our federal partners just to make sure it didn't meet the federal definition, the uniform crime reporting definition, and they confirmed that it did not. So this year, we did not have anything reported to us. For the public, I will say that does not mean that there are not bias incidents or crimes happening in our community. We would strongly encourage any member of our community to report those to us so we will be further. But I am proud to say that none were reported to us this past year. So starting with the year at a glance, we had 81 community touch points. So we created a support services unit a few years back that includes our community engagement team, who is responsible for our efforts in that area. And that team had approximately 81 different community events. So that includes farmers markets, events that we participated in our local elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. That includes our community academy, bike rodeos. There's a lot of different activities that we're asked to participate with that our team does a phenomenal job of engaging the community on. What that does not include is my calendar or Assistant Chief Constance's calendar, which is pretty robust with a lot of community presentations. For example, I was at UW twice last week giving different presentations to the criminal justice program, and give presentations for Wyotech, and engage with them, which I'll talk a little bit further about some of our plans in the future. At the bottom, I really want to talk a little bit about training and recruiting. We had approximately 106 applicants, 13 were hired. That's a selection rate of about 12%. The national average hovers right around between 10 and 13%. So we're right in that range. We have done a lot. We have tried a lot of different things to get different applicants through the door and through the process. And we're looking at a new process this year where we're asking the council to support a part-time position. We're going to give it a try for the next 3 to 6 months. And it's our goal is to hopefully hire someone who specializes in social media, community engagement efforts, technology, to help us kind of rebrand our department and get our information out there and hopefully increase our recruiting numbers. So last year we were hit with a lot of retirements. What we've seen nationwide in our profession is the difficulty to get individuals through training, which I really contribute to COVID, and the lack of communication for several years. And still ongoing in our middle school, high school, and college setting, but the majority of our students are interacting and engaging online instead of face-to-face. So we're having some challenges in the communications realm where we really have high expectations of our officers and their ability to de-escalate situations and engage with our community members. And we're really struggling trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. So we're hoping to have a position that can help us identify the ways to get more applicants through the door and increase our hiring rates. On the right, the crime data that's referenced here is referenced further in our annual report. But these are 5 crime areas that typically are pretty heavily investigated in our community. One of note that I'll say is the sexual crimes. Being a college community, typically you see those a little higher in those areas of the nation, including in Laramie. Theft crimes, we came up with a new process about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and we worked with a lot of our local realtors, a lot of our local shops, especially the big ones, Walmart, Ace Hardware, Ulta. And what we've asked them to do is typically they call 911 when somebody steals something, there's a theft at the location, and they even call 911 after the person flees. So what would typically happen is if somebody leaves the scene, our officers would respond. They might get there 5 minutes after, depending on fire service, it could be 15 to 20 minutes, and that person's kind of gone in the wind. So we came up with a process where if that person is no longer at site, the loss prevention officer for that establishment will complete their report. They'll pull up their surveillance video. They'll call dispatch to make a report. And then our administrative sergeant will review the surveillance video. Oftentimes we can identify people simply by the surveillance video, and then we'll assign it to an officer who can respond when they have free time available. So instead of taking an officer off the street when we might be short calls for service, or maybe one of our shops wait several hours for an officer to respond, they're able to do so in a timely manner, identify the individual, reach out to the officers to see if they can potentially identify the individual, and then we'll issue that individual a citation and move taking them into custody and then moving forward at a later date. So far, we've had pretty rave reviews, especially from Walmart and Ace Hardware, the biggest clients in this area. Wow. Real quick, I'll touch on the training hours. So 17 hours per officer per month is an average. So a lot of our officers, especially our special response team, typically train about 10 hours a month. So they kind of increase that curve a little bit. And then we have a lot of officers that attend different types of training. We've really been trying to leverage webinar-based training that gives our officers the ability to train here at home in Laramie instead of traveling outside of the state and increasing costs. There are still some conferences and training environments where we have to do that, but it's definitely less than it has been in the past as webinars have become more popular. So referencing communications, this is going into one of our divisions, LARP. I really wanted to emphasize their call times. The national average expectation really is 95% within 20 seconds. We average 99.5% in under 15 seconds. So they do phenomenal work, and that's with less personnel than we would like to see. We're slotted for 12 operators in our dispatch center. We currently have 9. And give and take, depending on who's in training, when they come out of training, that kind of fluctuates between, typically what I've seen since I've been here is about 8 to 12. So we're hoping, as we bring on a new part-time employee for the council, to increase hiring efforts, that'll really flourish in this area and new responsibility. Our patrol division. So this is really the nuts and bolts of the police department, and you'll see some of the numbers up there. They're pretty impressive. There is a decrease in traffic stops this year. We've really asked our officers to focus on parking enforcement. If I'm being honest, as the chief of police, I would guess that 95% of my complaints revolve around parking enforcement. And I kind of get it in both ends. I don't really say that I get complaints if we enforce and if we don't, but I actually got a call last week in the morning regarding a lack of enforcement complaints downtown. And without talking to any of our officers or community engagement officers or community support officers, I actually got a call right around 3 p.m. about a complaint for enforcement downtown. So we really get it on both sides. So it's something that we have set up our efforts in. There's more details of that actually in that outline in the annual report specific to downtown. And then some of the other calls for service are areas that our patrol division has seen increase or decreases, significant increase or decreases in. Criminal investigations. So we actually we're slotted for 3 detectives. The majority of 2025, we've operated with 2, so that makes these numbers even more impressive. And what we did is we had a sergeant retire, we put a new sergeant in there who's incredibly active, and it really did change the culture of the division. We've been able to have him participate more in writing search warrants, conducting investigations, and now it's more of a team effort, and they work closely with our support services unit, which also has been down in numbers because of deployment-related issues, and they've been able to work together to accomplish a lot of these goals and clear some of these cases. We also work closely with Albany County Sheriff's Department, and they have weekly investigator meetings with their detectives and investigators to make sure that we're collaborating together and not duplicating work. Animal control. So we do have a lieutenant in charge of every one of these divisions. I really wanted to kind of emphasize some of the calls for service that we have outside of city limits. And right now we're not charging anything for the sheriff's department. A lot of those calls for service that you see, those 22%, are the sheriff's department detaining officers collecting animals in the county area, and then bringing them into the shelter where one of our officers will respond if our animal control officers are not available, or our animal control officers will safely take custody of that animal and we'll have them check into the shelter. I will say there is a state statute that requires us to at times, depending on the specifics, quarantine animals for dog bites, and definitely take reports on every single dog bite in our community. So our support services unit is the third one, and currently their main focus has been on recruitment and training. So Sergeant Miles Cushman, Lieutenant Craig Linhart oversee this area of operations, and they also oversee our community engagement effort and any other outreach opportunities that we have. So we have been able to hire a tremendous amount of officers this past year. Part of the challenge for us is it takes approximately 8 to 10 months to get them through the training curriculum. So we're looking at 14 weeks in the academy, 8 weeks in-house training, getting them familiar with our software's procedures, general orders, City of Laramie handbook, and then another 4 to 6 months in the field training program where we'll be out with a partner officer, a senior officer, kind of escorting them through the processes of conducting criminal investigations throughout the city of Laramie, engaging the community, and ensuring that they're meeting our expectations. So we'll jump into the budget a little bit. I wanted to put a slide up there to show that the 23% of the city budget, the general budget, goes to police services. I will tell you this is well below the national average. The national average for a community of our size of approximately 30,000 to 40,000 residents is about 29%. Ours is 23%. It's about 42% combined with us and the fire department. So the largest amount of our tax dollars are going towards public safety, which I believe is an important function of city government, but we also are extremely efficient with what we have, and we are below the national average of spending. And if you look in the budget manual, I believe our area starts on about page 58. And you'll see that the majority of our budget is spent on personnel, and that includes salary and burden of our employees. And we did a cost survey, salary survey that was done a few years back, and it was supported by this council for pay increases. that our officers are being paid a fair wage that's consistent with other areas in our region. So these are some of the asks this year. And I always like going up after down because after they ask for millions of dollars of fire apparatus, it seems like our budget request may not be that high. And to be honest with you, last year, I don't know if we had any significant requests, but this year we do. So I always look for ways to offset costs. And again, we're doing it this year and our team looks for ways to offset costs. So we're requesting 2 positions. One position is a transfer. So we had a record specialist, and every time that we have somebody vacate a position, we try to leave it vacant for as long as we can determine if there's an actual need. And in one area in our department that we've really seen a transition over the last really 3 to 4 years is our records function. So we've really seen our software costs increase, but we've also seen that technology take over some of the functions of our records department. One example that I like to use is transcription. So when I got here, our records department was our officers who were reporting on a recording device, all of their police reports, and our records department was transcribing each one of those police reports. It took a significant amount of time. As we've invested in some AI report writing programs that basically dictates our body worn camera footage for us, we've seen a significant decrease in that transcription requirement to the point where our records division is no longer transcribing interviews. And the AI is doing the majority of that for us. And we had an opportunity to present that, I believe, to our financial advisory committee at the beginning of last year. And then also our draft on stuff for the police advisory board about 2 meetings ago, where council member Bowling took a significant amount of time to write a police report. And I believe the AI program did it in about 15 seconds. So it really is a hands-on experience that it has been beneficial to our department and given us areas to repurpose positions.
Chief, so the program that you got has reduced the time that it takes for them to write the report. It allows them to be on patrol more and to be out in the community more. But is it my understanding also that it has significantly increased accuracy of the reports?
Yes, accuracy and consistency levels. And that's from, it's felt both by the city attorney and also the county prosecutor.
That was my question.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
So the first request is that I'll start is actually the bottom one. So it's a transfer of a position from one of our records positions that we've been holding for approximately the last 6 months. It may be a little bit longer than that. And we're requesting to convert that into a police officer position. And the reason for that is our ideal deployment numbers are 6 officers per shift. So we run 4 shifts and they're basically split up with days and graveyard shifts. And we run 5, what we would like is 5 officers as a supervisor. And once again, that gives us the ability. We have vacation for officers on injury, FMLA issues. It gives us the flexibility to make sure that we're meeting our mandatory minimums, which is 4 officers and a supervisor. That's the goal for each team. So this would help us accomplish that and would give us the ability to have approximately 32 officers and supervisors, which would give us 6 for each team to complete our patrol deployment functions. The second request is a school resource officer, and this one's a little unique because it's kind of the brainchild of myself and Ryan O'Neill at Biotech. So forecasting Biotech's growth in the future, which is rather substantial. For those of you who are not aware, they are looking at essentially doubling the size of their facility and then also adding in dorms. And if we look at it realistically over their strategic plan for the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see significant growth in those areas. And the University of Wyoming has their own police department, as everyone in this room knows. And I think this is really an opportunity for the Wyoming Police Department and the city to partner with Biotech to make sure that we have a footprint in this area and an appropriate response. As they grow, we also grow. So the ask from council is we are asking for the city to fund a 2-year position, similar to the contract we entered about 3 years ago now with Albany County School District 1, where the city paid for the first 2 years of school resource officers, and then Biotech would start assuming that cost. And I believe the split is currently after year 2. We'll come to you with an additional request, but we're looking at about a 50%, 75%, and then 100% increase on the biotech side as they grow. And depending on how the project plays out, we could see additional officers requested by biotech requirements. And we've had some significant community complaints in that area, especially regarding oil on streets and abandoned vehicles. And what this does is it gives us the opportunity to have essentially a city official, police officer there that can coordinate responses to those types of issues that we see with that type of demographic.
A bit of a question on that. That's a great idea. And I think what you alluded to is the community dealing with the pressure there. So would this resource officer be their scope of work be beyond, you know, the school property as such? It would be more of a community resource officer for that area rather than a resource officer and involved that.
You're correct. Basically anything associated with biotech. So like they had their community engagement fair last Saturday, I believe it was May 9th. So events like that, and then also any complaints in that area, whether it's on Colorado, ensuring give them the ability to respond and come up with a plan in coordination with biotech, collaboration with biotech.
Great, thanks.
Just have a comment. This is a great idea because I don't know about some of the other council members. I don't know about some of the other council members, but this is like a growing email chain that happens to be in my email all the time. And I try to tell the students that. So I think this is a fantastic idea, especially with biotech buying so many properties around Laramie as well. So.
Yeah, I'll add, I would suspect that everybody sitting around this table probably has a similar email chain regarding issues surrounding biotech. So this really is an opportunity for us to get our foot in on the ground floor. And hopefully as biotech expands, we can also help with them with their security plans and just ensure it's a safe environment for students to come and enjoy learning.
I might have thought that was kind of heavy-handed, but since the university has a police department, it seems reasonable. But aren't the hours like people are working there doing stuff late? And how much can one person do? It's not like a high school where you're there during school hours. So how's that work? Because
we have a security team too, so I assume that this position is going to be working with our security team. But to answer your question, we have somebody on campus, like students, from about 6:30 in the morning till about 2 in the morning. So it kind of, you know, it's kind of, but I would assume that they're going to work with our security team as well.
Yes, actually, Assistant Chief Tom Smith and I met with Ryan O'Neill and the security team 2 weeks ago during that MOU. And to that point, what we've seen in the school district and what I anticipate, it really would be the police department too, is the days of us enforcing our ways and investing our ways out of the problem really don't exist. And we're starting to see, we've seen for several years, really this collaborative effort with all of our partners have much better results than us actually placing people on handcuffs. Biotech's a little unique. I will tell you the clientele there is definitely different than the university. And oftentimes they get clients coming from different parts of the United States that don't have the same expectations that has them there. And I think having somebody on the site, and I've seen it myself from being there during the welcome event and presenting the questions that I get asked after. One of the common questions I get asked is, hey, Chief, if I'm really driving 35 miles an hour, am I going to go over? Yes, you will. And that is not the case in California. I can tell you where
yeah, just mentally add 10.
If you were within 20 miles an hour of the speed limit, you probably would. So the expectations of different communities really need to be relayed to the students of biotech so they understand that learning is unique. We do have expectations as a community, and we welcome them here. But we also are going to hold them to those expectations.
Chief, may I ask this question? At the high school, junior high, biotech, are these sworn officers, do they carry sidearms? Are they authorized to act just as any other sworn police officer would?
Yes, they are. And we've actually had some conversations with the school district about softening our appearance, maybe having the school resource officers there in polo shirts. And I can tell you, speaking with the principal of the high school, that is not something that they want. And the reason for that is that the high school still has, at least with our MOU, they still have the administrative ability to deal with most of the issues they come across with on the administrative side. And generally speaking, our officer is there as a deterrent. But they're concerned for active shooter type situations, as we've seen an increase across our nation, probably weighs heavier than they're concerned to have an officer and softer parents. And I can tell you most of our school resource officers are new, regardless of what they're wearing, not for the enforcement efforts, but for ending stickers. So much so we actually got a card from, we got several cards from elementary school students this week, and one said, the question was, what do police officers do? I said, well, they arrest the bad guys that hand stickers. So, which is pretty accurate. That's our. So the other ask over here comes down to the opioid settlement fund that I'll touch on. And this is a couple areas that we've been working on for the last 3.5 years. The city attorney has kind of taken the head of this program, and we've been working to try to figure out ways that we can spend some of these funds that were given to us as part of a federal settlement to have a positive impact in our community. So we're really looking at it from the perspectives of community education, community crime enforcement, opioid crime enforcement, and then potential rehabilitation options. And the two areas that we've identified as city staff is the continuation of our mental health program. So about 2 years ago, I came to this council and requested approximately $20,000 a year in funding for a trial program, for the first year in funding for a trial program, in partnership with Albany County Sheriff's Department, University of Wyoming Police Department, and then the VOA. And we saw a lot of success with that program when we had our first case manager embedded in the police department. Since then, we've seen a little bit less success. We haven't had a case manager embedded in the police department. They do have an open position that they've been trying to fill for the last 6 months. But they have given us some additional case managers in other areas that we've been working with to kind of fill that gap. So that was one of the options that we came up for this council, is the continuation of that program. And really what that gives us is, as a police department, because we are not mental health experts. We do go through crisis intervention training, which you can read more about in our annual report, and other mental health first aid types of training. What we see oftentimes with mental crisis and mental health concerns is repeat customers calling the police department for help. So what this program really does is it gives the opportunity for the second, third, fourth calls of service, so the client is typically, or the customer is more stabilized, to directly send those people to the VOA, and they can build that relationship and provide the appropriate wraparound services to see success.
Is the problem for the funding to higher the salary?
Yes. So the salary, I can tell you, yes, 100%. I've heard that from SE from the VOA, who's our partner currently. And we gave a presentation to the Police Advisory Board in preparation for this budget proposal. And this recommendation was made by the Police Advisory Board to fund this program. But she did state that part of the problem is the salary recommendations that come from the VOA. And the criteria for a case manager is a certification criteria, not necessarily a degree criteria. So what they see a lot of times is people coming into the field and being there for a temporary amount of time, 2-3 months, and then moving on as they complete their degree fields. So that was the first request. The second request was for a K-9 unit. And I had mentioned this to council, I believe last year, when we were talking about the opioid prevention funds. And I recall one of the council members, I don't recall who, had asked if it would be appropriate for our community partners. So we actually reached out to several community partners as part of this proposal. But to be honest, I didn't know. So I reached out to the school district, and we actually got a letter of support from Albany County School District 1 in support of the program. Once again, for a lot of the same reasons that we have to inform officers in the school as a deterrent, and also community engagement effort. We also received a letter of support from the Laramie Regional Airport. We received support from Biotech for a lot of the same reasons. The other thing that a potential K-9, which would be a narcotic K-9, does for us is it gives these institutions the ability to enforce their code of conduct, not necessarily for the Laramie Police Department to arrest people or arrest students. We do have a single point of entry program here in Laramie County where juvenile detention and arrest is viewed very differently than the majority of the country. And this would be no exception for that. The other thing that it gives us is, I don't know if you've seen Chief Anderson with the University Police Department, who I'm extremely jealous of. He has a German Shepherd that he brings everywhere with him. And the community engagement component of that is pretty shocking. There's a lot of people who would never call to a police officer any other time, but when they walk in a building with that dog, they kind of love him. So it really is a good opportunity for us to see if it's going to work. So our request was one dog, and the budget from the opioid settlement funds, which will not come out of the general fund to support that proposal, do it for a year, see what the numbers look like, and see if it would be something beneficial for our community in the long term. And then we're hoping to utilize portions of the funds with those programs to create an endowment that would support those programs ongoing for the Laramie community for the foreseeable for the future. And with that, one other thing that I will add, we do have a sizable capital request. I believe it's $580,000. And that is for a new cloud-based communications dispatch system. So currently the way that we receive calls is through a traditional phone system. All of our vendors are moving to cloud-based systems, as you're seeing with most technologies. Everybody's moving away from on-site servers. So I've had the opportunity to work on this project, both with Kim Meyer, our WARC manager, and also through the Public Safety Communications Commission, which I'm also a part of. And one of our partners on there, Commissioner Hoffman, is also a part of that commission. So we've been able to look at different opportunities to change our footprint with our dispatch center. And the timing's perfect as we prepare potentially with SBT funds to move into a new facility. We'll be changing from on-site servers through this capital request to cloud-based vendor services that will also give us the opportunities to look at some unique options for our dispatchers. Where right now they're currently working for about 12 hours in a tight, dark facility. This will give us the opportunity to work in some remote capacities where they might have the opportunity to walk away and answer from a remote device, where they can go outside and take a 15-minute break and still answer calls for service. So I think there's some unique wellness features by going to a cloud-based vendor that I'm excited to explore. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I just want to add something about the opioid settlement fund, because I think you guys will be interested in this. The $650,000 you see allocated is actually all the funding we have on hand. And you'll notice that there's the establishment of 2 permanent funds, which would be managed separately. And so in the coming year, we will do an RFP for investment advisory services, and those funds will be managed as true permanent funds, which is a little bit different than our other investments that, we're holding because we're going to spend that money on capital later, not because it's a permanent fund. And so we'll get a little bit higher rate of return because we're going to manage these funds in that way. We'll do the same thing with the recreation center endowment. We do expect to receive about $1 million more in opioid settlement funds over the next several years. And so the goal is to fund that canine permanent fund at $500,000, which would pay for 1 canine unit into perpetuity and not increase our operating cost at all.
One that gets the dog.
Yeah.
Chief, thanks for the presentation. Just curious, in addition to kind of what you mentioned with UW-PD and using a dog to kind of bridge the gap potentially in some of the community outreach things, what other benefit, I guess, does that canine unit bring to the department kind of in terms of everything you guys do?
Sure. So we have throughout the county, we have a variety of different types of dogs. So UW's PD dog is actually a ball-sniffing dog. So it gives us the ability to bring a different dog into the community that has the ability to work with UW PD and partner with them for narcotics dog. The county also has another narcotics dog. Typically, the lifespan for these dogs is approximately 8 years, or at least the deployment opportunity to spend for these dogs. So depending on a budget cycle and where they're at the end of those 8 years, oftentimes it's hard to predict if we're going to have additional funding to support the program long term. So we could be filling a gap to help out our partners. So Highway Patrol does not have any type of canine in this area. There is one bite dog with the sheriff's department, but I've never heard of them getting a bite, at least since I've been here. There's a lot of liability attached for a bite dog. I wouldn't make a recommendation for a bite dog for our community. We have a very low crime level. So to be honest with you, I just don't see a need for this at this point in time. Hopefully never. So yeah, so it gives us the ability to utilize it with our partner organizations too. We do have a DCI task force that specializes in narcotics that operates here in Laramie. That we do have a task force officer, Stephen, that would also be able to be used this week.
Thank you.
Mike, is that a drug trained to take someone down if necessary?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure what the appropriate term is for that. But it's a dog.
Not my dog.
That is trained to apprehend suspects essentially on command. I will tell you that I have seen it before where they've accidentally bit officers. And they bit the wrong person. I've seen it before where they've bit suspects who have been appropriately paid. So it is a little bit of a wild card depending on the type of dog. That is not what we're asking.
No. Well, thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. I also want to reiterate that the police advisory board had this conversation specifically around the idea of tracking and narcotics versus something that feels and it also has a history especially for some people that is a little bit more traumatic environment. And I think it's a really also cool opportunity to make sure that people understand and have a community engagement component with this animal. We also were able to watch a series of videos of canines assisting in the tracking of false persons and things like that, which I think is going to be a real asset to us, especially as we might liaise with other search and rescue groups regionally. And then Jen, Todd, could you direct me, just because I'm not finding it right off the top of my head, where the capital requests are? What page are we looking at?
I'm glad that you asked about that. So are you using the bookmarks in your document or just going, so if you.
No, sorry, no, just looking at table contents.
So if you pull up your bookmarks, it's really easy. You'll just click on capital investment and by type. If you are not doing it that way, if you start on page 81 for the general fund, that's where you'll see them.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking about that.
Seeing no further questions for Chief Brown, we'll call it Derek Payne, Community Economic Development Director.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to use some first names today because I don't think I ever get to do that. This is going to be an opportunity to do so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the Community and Economic Development Department's budget. Feel free to jump in, ask questions while I'm going through it. It does kind of in what we've seen the rest of this evening, and that's going great. First off, what I would say is I think overall community and economic development budget is fairly straightforward. As you'll see, it's mostly organized in terms of our personnel and operating costs. We then often have general studies, plans that we do throughout the year. Those usually fall kind of periodically every 2-ish years or 3 years, depending upon the subject type. And we're pretty limited in capital improvements. We're not generating a lot of projects. And so overall, I think as I go through the budget, you'll see some of that information there being fairly straightforward, like I said. And so I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to talk a little bit about our staff and kind of what our organization looks like in community economic development. I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget vision and then just some of the high points of our 27 budget.
Sorry.
Wait till you click on the page. Good. All right. So as you'll see, we've got an organizational chart here. I've included the names of my staff, many of those people that you know. As you know, many of our staff are out in the public in different ways. Not only do you see myself and some of our support staff there, you see our building officials. They are out constantly or at the front desk doing different types of inspections, building plan, permit review. Our planning staff are out there doing different community events as well as engaging with the public and many other different planning efforts that are occurring in the city. Probably one of the most involved and impactful people is Ray Sandoval. He's out there as our code enforcement officer. You know, he is just such a personality, engaging with people in a usually a pretty tough position. You know, he's usually not engaging with our public in a positive manner or for a positive reason, but he often makes friends and really builds relationships with some of the people in our community, ultimately there to help them out. And then we've got our health inspector, Cody Talbot. He's actually out there doing our restaurant inspections, you know, tattoos and things like that. So once again, who are we? You've got myself and Robin Beatty. Robin, I'll talk a little bit about her. She is our department director or coordinator. She really helps keep our office organized. She is providing not only support to myself in projects that we're working on, but also provides support to many of our staff, as well as, you know, kind of keeping our finances in check and in straight and making sure payments are getting done. Our planning department, many of you know our planning department. You see them pretty regularly at council. They are really, you know, in charge of both the physical and long-range development of our community. You know, they're the ones out there developing our planning efforts, looking at long-range planning, completing projects that are usually engaging with our neighborhoods as well as our citizenry about what they want to see happen in this community. I would also point out they provide a significant amount of support to our different boards and commissions, including our council. The staff is often at meetings, not only for Planning Commission, but USAC, DDA, City Council, our Board of Adjustment. So, you know, they're out there engaging in those public forums similar to what you all do on Tuesday nights. Code administration, you'll see our 3 code admin staff. We've got 1 vacant position currently that's unfilled, but they're really, you know, responsible for that, overseeing the construction that's happening in our community. I kind of always call it the kind of from the ground up building of our homes, our commercial industrial spaces in the community. You know, they're mostly out doing inspections, but then when they are in the office, they're usually answering questions from the public, taking phone calls, doing plan review, and those types of tasks. They do also provide support to our Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals. That's the board that hears any concerns related to the actual building code or interpretations of the building code. And so that's the group which they manage. Our health inspector, Cody Talbot, we're really lucky to have Cody. Cody came from the States, brought an amazing wealth of knowledge and information that just he wows me with all the time. But, you know, Cody's in charge of all of our licensing, permits, and inspections related to everything that's associated with pools, spas, restaurants, tattoo and body art establishments, and temporary food vending. A majority of his time is spent out in restaurants, but does work with also our parks and rec staff on our pools and spas in order to coordinate the pools and spas that we have within the community. We got a question.
Thanks, Derek. Cody's been a total asset to our company. Because I remember, you know, when we opened the first one, didn't know anything, right? And then he surprised us 30 days later. And he doesn't tell you when he's coming in, right? He just shows up. I kind of know what month he's coming, but I always tell my staff, be prepared for him to come in anytime. And the great thing about Cody is if he sees a challenge, he educates the staff on it. And he'll ask them questions, and sometimes they may not know the answer because they don't maybe understand his vernacular. but most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, we got it down. But now if I see his car at one of my shops, I don't stop. I just let my staff handle it. And he's done such a great job training them. So he's easy to work with. If he sees an issue, he doesn't browbeat you. Fortunately, maybe we haven't had any big issues like maybe some restaurants had in the past or what have you, but I really like having Cody on board.
Yeah, and I think, for our health inspection, just because of the number of restaurants and food establishments we do have in this community and the fact that we bring in so many people from the outside, right? Every single weekend, we have different visitors coming to visit their students, whether they're at WyoTech, LCCC, or the university. And I mean, we're just kind of that melting pot of the United States all coming to this community because of our educational facilities. And so providing safe places for these types of things to happen is really important. And just to point out, so Cody is 3/4 time, so he works 30 hours a week. This is not a full-time position. And I think someday we will probably not have Cody available, and we'd probably have to have a full-time person to get what he gets done in 30 hours. Our last person, code enforcement, this is the person that's going through doing investigations on any type of weeds, growth, nuisance violations, junk vehicles, and ice and snow removal. He almost did none of that last part this whole winter. It was very, very interesting year. So. Wrong button. There we go. So what I want to talk a little bit about just briefly is just a little bit of a budget vision. You can kind of see those are kind of pages 47 through 49. But as I mentioned, we have fairly limited capital costs. So a lot of times the main costs you're going to see are plans and studies that we do. I think over time, as Community and Economic Development Division continues to expand and start to be involved in some of the other types of initiatives and implementation from the plans, I think we may become more involved in capital planning and some of the physical construction of things happening in our community. But for now, that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, most of our costs come into studies and plans each year that are outside of that personnel or operating. We're an evolving department. You'll see later in this presentation a little bit about some staffing changes and some different organization. And I think that that'll be something that I'll continue to look at as far as community economic development is how we can best serve the community in those areas that this department oversees. Last, we're heavily customer service oriented, and I think that that's just something that comes not only within the different areas that we're charged in serving, as we happen to engage with the general public significantly day-to-day in our operations. And so I think that that's just something that we will continue to focus on, and it's a pretty forefront in our mind idea as we go into each day and kind of how we operate, whether it's simple things like inspections or broader things like engagement with the citizenry during like public planning events or things like that. So to dig a little bit more into budget, community economic development is 4% of the city's budget. Our budget's around about $2 million. Overall, to remind you, the community economic development department is only 2 years old. This department has existed in the past. So the community economic development department was a department in past years. But this reestablishment is to provide just that broader organization of, planning, code administration, the health inspections, and code enforcement. You'll see the budget's broken out into about 70% personnel, 30% are operating and long-term costs, mostly in planning and things like that. I'll point out there's a small reduction in our budget from 26 to 27, mostly related to those plans. As you'll see each year, that's kind of where our budget bounces between, because if we don't have any major plans in the year, we definitely reduce our budget and we don't need to ask for any budgetary requests for those. One thing I'll point out is our fee revenue. This is related to mostly our building permit fees. I think it's an important thing to point out in that the permit fees that we do receive provide a great boost to the general fund, but also provides, some guidance in kind of what we're doing within this department in terms of why we're charging those fees and the services we're providing in terms of inspections and planning. So just some highlights, as I mentioned, my budget is pretty straightforward, but I think that there are some highlights. We do have some minimally centrally budgeted requests. You find those on page 40, about $12,000 software related and those types of things. A bigger item here is a new capital project for Boulder Drive sidewalks. This is associated with sidewalks that are located on the east side of Boulder Drive. The city of Laramie owns those properties. There's a detention pond at the north and some commercial property to the south. This is fully geared on future economic development and use of those properties and getting those into some sort of usable use in the future, whether that's housing, commercial space. By getting the sidewalks in, this makes it easier to develop, as well as easier to subdivide, move boundary lines, change easements, and provides us the administrative ability, instead of coming to council through a longer process, to maybe do that and work more nimbly with anyone that might be interested in those properties. The other reason and importance of this project is the Bill Nye Avenue corridor. As it continues to move forward and begins construction in the near future, those utilities will open up the southern portion of that property, making this, we believe, very attractive to maybe future development. Some other items, and mostly projects and studies. We've got 3 projects here: wayfinding, the Forge Comp Plan, and reconnecting communities that are going to see some carryover from this current budget. We're almost done with the wayfinding project. You'll see many of those signs out throughout our community. The main signs that are missing are along 3rd Street, which we're working through with property owners and with LIDOT to get necessary easements in places that we can to try to install the last remaining signs. So that project is coming in under budget and is going to be completed, we believe, in the near future. The Forge Comp Plan is just in its 2nd year, so that's just carryover funding from the previous year. And then reconnecting communities, we're still doing a little bit of work on this project. You all have adopted that plan, but we did have additional budget with this that we are working with the Union Pacific Railroad to try to better understand how we can improve our connections over that space. They are an interesting animal to work with, I'm going to say. They're a large bureaucracy that is sometimes hard to work with, but we're starting to learn and understand through this process how we might be able to work with them. And so we're using some of that budget as we kind of wrap up some of our conversations with them. The last item I'm going to note is a new item here in the fiscal budget for this year is the $35,000 for concept design for the east and west side of the Garfield Street footbridge. Both in the reconnecting communities plan, as well as much of the downtown discussions that we recently had on the downtown plan. This has been a topic of importance. How do we improve those landings and create the space that we want to see when we get off of the bridge, but also helping connect our west side and West Laramie to the remainder of our town, and it's the main pedestrian route in our community. Future 28-29 budgets will have construction funds projected in there. And we'll come and talk to you again next year on those topics. But it's a pretty good project, and I think it's going to be an exciting time to kind of see those improvements come. Last thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit about personnel. Rental housing coordinator. This is a position that we're looking to really focus on addressing and working with rentals in our community. And so this is going to be a position I'll show kind of on the next slide where that will be within the department, as well as another building inspector position. One of the things that we have noted is we are getting to the point where our inspectors are essentially spending 7 hours of their 8-hour day in the field doing inspections. And that leaves about an hour to take phone calls, to do plan review and things like that on average per week. And that just simply is not cutting it anymore. We believe that having that additional position will help kind of ease the ability for not only inspections across the community, doing those even in a faster fashion, but also giving the ability of our chief building official to work on some of the long range objectives of the building department that really haven't got to be focused on just due to time limitations. So I will point out though, both these positions are 2-year limited positions. So we mentioned this earlier in the presentation. I think Todd, or not in my presentation, but in I think it was Fire's presentation, Todd mentioned, we think we need to kind of try these out and see how this helps and how our budgets look as we move forward into the future. And by doing a 2-year position, this gives us some flexibility when 2 years comes up, that if we don't have the budget or we find that these are significantly no longer needed or something, that we can pivot and move on that. So when we're looking at that, we're kind of looking at this rental housing coordinator to potentially be kind of a new position similar to our code enforcement and health inspector. There's definitely been some talks. We may bring both all the code enforcement, health inspector, and rental housing coordinator all into one role under one kind of organizational person. And then just our new building inspector would just fall under our chief building official as well. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions, and I hope they'll solve it.
Derek, can you go back one slide and just reiterate what you said about code enforcement and rental housing coordinator being qualified under a single position?
See all these 3 positions. And
Yeah.
I think in the future, it's going to make some sense to probably house these under some sort of a manager.
Oh, okay, after the 2 years.
In the future. And I think that's probably 2 years out, maybe even longer. I think that some sort of a management structure is going to make sense there to help with all of those efforts that kind of fall in this like inspection role that's going to be needing some more focus that maybe not some of our other staff can provide.
Counselors, if I could add that, maybe comes a little bit from my direction. One of the big struggles in municipal government is one position departments. If somebody leaves, the impact of the upheaval is so difficult to fill in. The idea behind that type of structure is to create some verticality where somebody maybe has the general knowledge through all the positions that can, if somebody leaves, it can be covered, or they understand, there's a broader understanding of what's happening, provides better continuity of service for us, and the chance that somebody does retire or leave for any reason.
Thanks, Derek, for his name. Great. I've heard from a few folks about the rental housing coordinator and, people in the community saying, do we need to add another position, for in this title? I guess, could you just describe kind of the need and, adding this position? I think it's great that there's 2 years to kind of look and see if this is an underutilized position, then maybe it's not recommended in the future, but kind of the role that hasn't been filled in the city government, if that's the way I want to phrase it, like what this would bring to like a community economic development team by adding that position.
So here's what I would say to that. So currently right now, Nancy and her team are fielding complaints or any issues surrounding the rental housing code that was adopted by council, right? And one, I would say that we know that, and I'm going to speak for Nancy, she is a busy person at her department, is not the size and usually not equipped to handle a lot of those calls. I think that this position is going to be able to focus on, one, responding to rental housing complaints, which is a large component of the rental housing code. But number 2, can start working on the incentive side of the objectives that this council has talked about, whether it's promoting good rental housing practices, developing, whether it's seminars or going after grants for smoke detection, whatever it is that we're talking about on that non-enforcement side of things. The other thing about the rental housing program that we do know is that we don't have full compliance. We know that there are rentals that are out there that are not signed up. We just simply don't have the time, and that person that's dedicated to do the job, to reach out, contact the places, do the research, and get those rentals registered so that we can start to do what the ordinance was intended, is to provide the basic life and safety for the people renting these units. And so, although there is that enforcement side, I think that's going to become, we hope, a small component. I will say though, that does take a significant amount of time. It takes coordination of multiple departments to go do an inspection, often preparing reports, and this will allow that person to kind of be prepared. The other thing that I think is going to be really important about the rental housing coordinator is building relationships with the different people that own rentals. Ultimately, we want to provide safe rental situations for people that are renting, but also we want to be able to provide opportunities for people that are renting their properties, maybe programs or abilities to reach out and make connections with city staff to, fix issues, solve problems. That's where this person is going to lie. And, when we have such just a heady rental market in this community, I think it just makes sense to try to provide, I would say, good customer service in that area to the best that we can.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. I really appreciate that response. I appreciate that response and answer. I think that's exactly what I'd be hoping to see. And my last thoughts on this would just be, I kind of can see this position maybe filling the role of like a convener of kind of like we did with different developers and contractors, facilitating feedback. I could see that being, for either people renting places or for landlords, people owning rentals, it's kind of a way to do a think tank or get feedback. And I could see that role maybe filling that position at some point. My second comment is, I think we need to add more work on Nancy's agenda, not taking part.
I do not support that.
Yes.
And work that's like outside the scope of the city clerk expertise. She's got a call.
I mean, public outreach will be important. I think I really would emphasize that. I think it's going to be building those relationships, like I said, with like the university and, different management or different property managers and property owners and things like that.
Thanks, Derek.
That's true. And this would also add to the small landlord improvement program that we've been trying to work on, to try to get the amount of manpower to work on the initiatives that council has been important to push forward. And far and wide, what I see across the city is there's great ideas, all this going on. There's just not enough hours of the day for us to get them done. This is one way to try to send something.
I really appreciate this. It feels like it's a long time coming, that every year we're like, why are we harder here? Why is this not working? Why, I'm not due date and black pepper, but my time. So area.
I'll say two things, but now we're gonna try this for the SLIP program, right? We got that approved and budgeted, and then kind of other things took priority, because unlike Jim, I don't want to take a chance on things. So it's really nice that we're gonna try this, and we're gonna try this for 2 years. The other aspect of this that I've heard is the people who have registered their rentals, right? And then they, I don't know if any other council members have talked to some of those, but they'll say like, oh, well, I know X, Y, and Z over here hasn't, so why should I keep doing this? Now we have somebody who can go after or help X, Y, Z understand why we have this, right? And then lastly, I don't think this position will take away from SLIP, because that takes a budget amendment, right? I think that was something that I saw online, that, if we're going to add this position, what are we going to get rid of? So far, nothing, right? So I appreciate this, and I think it's going to get the SLIP program or the landlord recognition programs really going where we want it to. Thumbs up.
Thanks, Brandon.
You've been waiting all day for that, huh?
Absolutely.
Counselors, not seeing any more questions for Derek. We were hoping to get through IT tonight if that was possible. We're right at the 8 o'clock hour, but I think it'll be a brief presentation with a few questions. And then our intent is to push Nancy and Patty. Do we want to try to get through HR tonight? Let's get through HR. So IT and HR tonight, and then we'll push Patty and Jen to Thursday night.
Okay. It's been a long day.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
And yes, page 1, there should be a G.
There's been a
The draft I sent in,
had the.
The lady.
I like it. I'm not sure what technology it is, but
It's the new age.
the IT supplemental budget requests are found in the budget book on pages 50 and 51. So tonight I'll just give a brief high-level overview of what IT does, where we see technology needs going in the future, and the reasoning behind the budget requests. So technology is now integrated into nearly every aspect of modern government operations and services. So both city staff and citizens rely on technology every day for all their communications, information access, and essential services. So what IT does is we ensure that every department and division across the city has reliable access to the applications, systems, and information they need to effectively serve the Laramie community. Our role is to make technology reliable, secure, and accessible so departments can focus on serving citizens. A little bit of numbers. IT supports hundreds of desktops and laptops and servers across the organization, including system maintenance, security updates, replacements, ongoing support. We also protect and back up a significant amount of data for the city, both locally and in the cloud. From a connectivity standpoint, IT maintains and secures network and internet access across more than 25 city facilities. We provide both wired and wireless access for city employees, as well as public Wi-Fi access within city buildings. So kind of our strategic direction where we're going, IT plans to continue strengthening our cybersecurity protections for the city and its citizens, while striving to remain as unobtrusive as possible and minimize disruptions to city services. So as technology demands continue to grow, and you've seen that already in some of the presentations that you've had, some of the presentations that will be coming, technology has been mentioned, software has been mentioned, this new thing is going to help us. And so IT hopes to expand the areas where we can support departments with their new softwares in order to improve operational efficiency and better serve software-driven workflow across the city. So as part of that service expansion, IT is proposing an additional position. This is a 2-year proposal, and a department reorganization internally to focus on improving software support and end user training, both generally and for specialized applications used across the city. This would allow IT to expand service capabilities while maintaining the infrastructure and support levels that we currently provide. As far as the operating and equipment request, the recommended budget includes a modest increase within operations and equipment budgets. And this is to address announced and anticipated vendor price increases for software, hardware, licensing, and support services. I believe the overall amount is around $10,000 from the additions and subtractions are taken into account. And so it's nice and short for IT. That's kind of an overview for our department and the direction and our fiscal year 27 budget requests. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you, Jonathan. This isn't a question, and it's not even really a request. But there's so many departments that we liaise with, and we get to see, week after week after week after week. And IT is not one of them. We see you. And so I even think I would, at some point, I'd like to see the flow chart. I'd like to know who are the rest of our team is and what they do and have those opportunities that we don't get with the same, regularity that we get with Jen's staff or Philip or Derek's staff, et cetera. Thank you.
Or the IT often likes to hide in the background and be behind the keyboard on the computers. We do have a great staff, especially as we propose a reorganization to our city manager. That may be a time we can come in and showcase some of that. Some of IT did get to come before city council when the CrowdStrike thing happened, and we got to work a couple of days straight. But we have a great staff.
I would add to that I think if I would ask Jonathan if you could put your organizational chart together and get it to me, we'll get it out to council. But the other thing is don't share that because we don't want their names getting out. We don't want people to headhunt them away from us.
Yes. And I'll just say, Councilor Bullen, you must be really good and careful with your computer because I see them a lot more. I'm getting better though.
All right, no further questions for Jonathan. We'll move on to Patty Russell, our director of HR.
Good evening, how is everybody tonight?
Is that on?
Everybody's excited. So human resources is a department that either people love or hate. We like to be the ones that they love. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Our department currently has 3 full-time employees and 1 part-time provisional. Keep us really busy. We support about 450 full and part-time employees. We are, as you can tell by the earlier screens, 1% of the city budget. So really easily. What do we do? Oh, first of all, budget for this year, we're not asking for anything extra at this point. We're going to keep things the way they are until we know how things settle. We're not asking for additional monies or changes in fiscal year 27. While we're working, we want to ensure that we plan well and use the funding that we currently have. What is human resources? It's a little bit of absolutely everything. HR is a field that touches every department of the organization. We are truly the liaison between our employees and management. We ensure the following of city, state, and federal laws, as well as administer the employment-related practices and policies. We not only work with each department, but also every employee who works for the city, either full-time or part-time, has to work with HR at various times during the time of their time within the city, whether it's new hire orientation or when they leave the organization, and sometimes in the middle of our benefits. Our work actually starts before we employ anyone. First, we need to recruit, interview, and hire the best qualified employees in accordance to our policies and the federal equal employment opportunity laws. HR sits in the majority of the interviews that we have with the city and works with our hiring managers to find the best fit for their departments. Then the onboarding of employees begins. Our new ERP will include a recruiting module that will also interface with the payroll module within the successful applicants. But entering all their information at the very beginning takes time and takes effort in making sure that their benefits are all correct at the same time. We facilitate the onboarding process before their first day of work. We meet with the successful candidates and start the hiring process to include their paperwork and drug testing. They then come to our office on their first day of employment to fill out the remainder of the paperwork and learn about and sign up for their employee benefits. All employees are required to participate in different mandatory training that we have, including sexual harassment, driving, anything that we need them to participate in. This is done in small doses several times a year, as is our driver's training. We have additional trainings for our supervisor staff, and we're working on including a new supervisor's packet and training as well as current employees training. That way. So a lot of employee relations that we have to deal with. Not only do we have to deal with
people coming on board, people leaving, promotions, anything like that. We have to work with our supervisor staff on their performance management. Not only do we manage the performance evaluation process, which is also being updated with our new ERP, but we work with supervisor personnel on performance improvement plans, disciplinary actions that are needed, and sometimes, unfortunately, terminations. We're also the keeper of all employee files, so any documents for the employment cycle of our employees is kept in our office. I have a sign on my desk that I make sure everybody sees. It says, "Did you document it?" That's us. Everything gets documented and put in files. We do compensation and benefits administration. I'm continuously looking at the benchmarks for salaries for various positions within the city to ensure we are classifying and paying our employees correctly. We want to make sure that we're fair and consistent within the organization and keeping up with benchmarks that are within our area. The other thing we work on is performance management. As stated earlier, it's also something that we help our managers with. All full-time employees are evaluated at least once a year. This enables the city to support the decisions that we need to make in promoting, disciplining, termination. We rely on documentation to help us make decisions regarding employee actions. Once again, did you document it? Compliance and regulatory obligations. We have a lot of laws and acronyms that we have to follow. As stated earlier, we have to follow local, state, and federal laws and maintain the records of our employees and all documentation. Our policy has to be followed and enforced according to most of the laws that are listed here, plus a few more. I got done with the presentation and I found like 5 more that I should have.
I'm trying to see how many I know.
It's a lot. Risk management is also part of HR. We not only do we administer the property and liability claims that come through the city, but also our employee-related issues and federal laws such as harassment and discrimination, unfair labor practices, terminations. Risk is something that we discuss not just as a department, but as a city every single day. Key areas of HR, employment discrimination, and harassment claims. Luckily, we do not have many of those. Wage and hour violations, actually, we don't have any of these, thank goodness. Workplace safety incidents, our teams are really, really good at providing us information about what goes on within their department safety-wise, so that we can always cater our training to what needs to be addressed. We work with our insurance carrier, Warm, on also providing training as situations come up. For example, the city of Cheyenne has had some major instances with backing incidents with their sanitation department. We had actually brought that back to our department here and said, here's some things we can do to make sure that doesn't happen to us. I don't want our names to be mentioned in the Warm meeting saying, look what Laramie did. So we also look at misclassification, whether it's exempt or non-exempt of our employees, as well as making sure that privacy and confidentiality is taken care of. HR is an integral part of the organization. We work with every single department. We work with all of our employees. Our job is to protect the city and our employees and ensure legal compliance and our HR practices reduce risk. Any questions?
Perfect. First, I have it's kind of a question. First, I want to say I'm so proud of our staff, like everything we learn about what they're doing. And so that's why it's important to me, and I'm sure most of council, that we keep wages competitive. And I know that you've worked on that, because we know that to replace an employee is expensive, and you lose a lot of time in that training. So my question is, we seem to be good. I'm going to just take credit for the whole city. We seem to be good about that continuity, like passing on skills, so that so then when we lost Malia, for example, we weren't like, oh no, how do we do all this? So is that something that HR encourages, like within each department, make sure you're training people down the track, or is that within the departments, they just know to do that?
Within reason, we try to have those conversations with a lot of our departments, especially for key positions. What would you do if this person left, or if something were to happen? We try to make sure that our key responsibilities within the city are always something that we can work on and we can address, even if that person, I say, wins the lottery and moves to Jamaica. I've never had anybody get by us. This won't happen. So I do try to have a conversation with a lot of our department heads. I try to have a conversation with some of our managers. We have, if people leave, we have certain functions that have to be taken care of. And we all, I think as department heads, we all know that and have conversations with Todd about that as well.
That's correct. We actually encourage succession planning so that we know what's happening. And I can tell you that even in the realm that I'm at, that Director Wade and myself have been talking about what does succession planning look like? What does the future look like just in this realm? And we're constantly encouraging our directors to continue to think about what does the future look like? Because the next will be here.
Thanks, Patty. I have a question maybe for you. It could be answered by like any of the directors or Todd or whomever, but just in terms of talent acquisition from an organizational perspective, what are some of the biggest barriers to recruitment to the city?
I think Brian mentioned that a little bit earlier, is the newer generations don't look at the old ways of doing recruiting anymore. They don't look at the newspaper for a job. They don't always look at the hiring sites like Indeed for jobs anymore. I actually was excited that Brian had suggested his part-time person have put in the job description, work with human resources, because we want to make sure we get into that ability of reaching the right people to come and work with us. So that is one of our toughest.
If I add to that just a little bit, some of the specific skills are hard to hire to. Director Wade's, the CPAs, and that knowledge is becoming fewer and farther between. Director Taney and the building inspectors, you know, you've got to have somebody that's got building experience and balancing that wage competition versus what they could make working for the city versus what they could make in the building realm. You know, those are the things that we see. Far and wide, once we do get an employee in, they realize that the city of Laramie is a great place to work. And they typically stay with us for periods of time.
And it's tough to find those skills, and it's also tough sometimes to find the right fit, because they have to be able to fit on your team to work as a team. It took me 6 to 8 months to find somebody for my team, just because we needed to have that good fit of somebody who could do a little bit of absolutely everything. Because we're a small apartment, we all have to lean on each other for tasks that have to be.
To comment to Biotech has a career fair every 3 months, right? And it's actually this week. So I hear students, and this is like kind of something that you guys have hit on. They'll only use like Indeed, and they won't look anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, our students could do like 12 interviews each a day for 2 days. But then like I had one student who was like, I'm not doing any, I put my resume on Indeed. Somebody will call me. And like, that's the mindset of some of these younger people. So I'm like really I'm excited to see like what this new position will do for, and hopefully we can fund them out to other departments. Right, Chief?
Patty, I just want to say thanks for the presentation. And I think similar to IT, as Councilor Bowling mentioned, or Will, I should say. You know, I think in my year and a half on council, been really grateful for the times that HR has been in the room when they're needed. And you guys are kind of unsung heroes. And I say that similar to Jonathan's team, where there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And if we're not seeing you, that means it's probably working okay. You know, and so just grateful for all the work that you do. And same with some of those other departments that aren't quite in front of council the same way. Thanks.
Counselors, I hope you've enjoyed these presentations tonight. We'll pick them up against Thursday, but now I think it's time to go back into the reformalize the work session so that we can go through
Agenda review for next week.
Yes. Well, I know, I'm about to, I have to, we are back on your rules of order, rules of procedures. And so our next step is to ask, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of council. I'm listening intently to all of these descriptions of what the departments are doing. And the only thing that concerns me about what I'm hearing tonight, and also what I've seen in the documents that are posted online, is that we seem to be growing the city government many times faster than our population. Laramie's population grows about 0.5% a year. And here we are talking about adding several percent to the size of city government. And that's a bit of a concern. Some of the, I think some of the positions that have been proposed tonight are definitely needed. I definitely hire another building inspector, because for heaven's sake, we have construction projects that are held up for days because people can't get their work inspected. That's definitely a positive thing. On the other hand, when we have 6 complaints under our rental housing ordinance per year, hiring for $100,000 salary per year, a rental housing czar seems a bit excessive. There's a concern there that not only would this be wasteful because we don't have enough business for that person to do, but also that person might go fishing for more things to do to justify that $100,000 salary and actually harm the situation with regards to rentals, which has already become a problem due to regulation. A lot of people are divesting and selling and otherwise getting out of the business. So I would caution you to look this over carefully. Try to be a little bit more efficient about this, and don't overspend, especially at a time when we have a referendum coming up on the general election ballot, which would greatly cut our property tax revenue and therefore cut the money we have to spend on this. Thank you.
Mr. Ross. Any further comment on this agenda item? Okay, thank you to those who have attended tonight. Next, council updates. Councilor Newman. None. Vice Mayor Richardson.
And I'm here again, no minutes.
What?
Pass 4 minutes.
Yes, you may pass. Councilor Vigil.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just for me, we heard it at the beginning of the meeting. I just want to express some appreciation for tonight's vote. I'm really excited to be going to Texas for town gown, and I will come back with an extensive report. Thanks.
Councilor Shumway.
No updates.
Thank you. Councilor Bowling.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, the last meeting I had with police advisory, and it was almost the same presentation that we got tonight. So report on that. It was the same day as the events. Oh, and we had youth council on last Tuesday, but then they immediately presented to council. So there you go.
Thank you. Councilor Lockhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended planning commission last evening, and they ended up with Board of Variance, which is they're going to have something we're going to look at. The issue was a house that's almost finished, ended up with some siding that is very top of the line siding, and at the last inspection, after it had already been put on, and the building inspector did not know it was not allowed. And it's very top of the line. So after about an hour discussion, it was postponed so they can work on a text amendment to go through us, because it's top of the line, but yet it's not allowed in the code. And so it's going to be very interesting. And the entire planning commission came up to me afterwards, like, you guys are going to be for this, right? They want this to happen for the children. So I'm really excited to see that. That's about it.
Thank you. Let's see. Councilor Freed.
Thank you, Mayor. No new meetings since the last work session, but on Wednesday at 6 p.m., the Parks and Rec Board will meet for our regular monthly meeting, but we'll be doing it at Levante Park outside. There's a presentation and we'll walk around some of the updates from the Levante Park project, which is pretty cool. Then the Ranch Advisory Commission meets on Thursday the 14th at 1 p.m. in this room. And there will be no Traffic Safety Commission that day on the 14th due to the City Council work session. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor O'Doherty.
I'm just the Laramie Advisory Commission on Disabilities, but I know they're planning on having a booth at Freedom Has a Birthday and Pride in the Park to inform the public about disabilities. And I know one of the issues they hope to address is to encourage people to understand what's available for voting if you have a disability, how you can vote. And then that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. And then I attended the Albany County Housing and Land Trust Steering Committee meeting, and we are continuing to move forward with organization and creating structure. We're currently, as far as membership goes, looking now for additional community-based people who can contribute that perspective to the group, especially we're looking for someone who is a renter to provide that perspective. So that committee is moving forward. On May 2nd, I attended the UW Art Gala as the guest of Rocky Mountain Power. And it was really, the intention was to bring us together. And I was able to have really a long, probably more than 30-minute conversation with the president of Rocky Mountain Power, and was able to promote, our town, what's going on, our approach to economic development. And he's real interested in pulling a meeting together where we can just sit down and brainstorm. He told me that they tend to work on 3 to 5 year minimum plans, and that a community that comes to them and wants it tomorrow is not going to be able to get something. And he said also, you can't build it on dreams, you have to have a plan. So with that, I think we're in good shape to have some feasibly productive conversations. I've had a number of constituent meetings, probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the last 2 weeks. And that's been helpful to get out and talk to people and spend time out in the community. And then I did a video with Owen expressing gratitude to the public for the 6-penny vote. And this week I'm engaged in civil service all-day meeting. So today and tomorrow. And tomorrow at 8 o'clock, there's the airport board. And then on the 18th, I'm one of the readers at the library for reading day. And that's going to be fun. So I'm going to be reading at 8:30 in the morning to a group of school kids. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I remember Courage and more 11 months for the committee there to this speak. Okay.
Huh?
If it's okay if I share like meeting that.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
For everyone's knowledge, they have started, they're working with UW to look at impacts of wildlife on the drought system, and they are working all sorts of images. They have thousands, like 60,000 images or something like that, and are also utilizing AI to sort of sift through those fine images of wildlife and speeding of that process. But the initial, it was really interesting, just to kind of see how migration is changing. We're not changing in a lot of ways. So if anyone is interested in that, I can be sure to review that, where they are so far, more to come on it.
Very good. Next, counselors, if you could take a look at the agenda for next week. And my first question would be if there's any suggestions to move an item from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Yes, Councilor O'Doherty.
I don't know that it would need to be moved necessarily, but I think the public would be interested in the Laramie Lake bus route, so I don't know if that could, or if there just isn't much information yet to share about that. But so it's 9H.
Yeah. Counselor Doherty, through Mayor, it's certainly your option. It's just a 2-year extension of the existing amendment. So there's nothing new. The summary does talk about the 10-year strategic public transportation plan, and then this is establishing the baseline and maintaining our baseline that we currently have. And that it gives us time to work on and work with our partner on hopefully extending that into the version, hopefully West Laramie route.
But I don't need to move things.
Yeah, I will say that the Vice Mayor and I had questions on 9G, I think, and 9H, and these were just, was it 9G? Anyway, these were just renewals rather than new contracts, so we decided to leave it. So if there are no other suggestions, if we can look at the regular agenda, is there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, that concludes our meeting, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.